He walked down to the church in the warm sunlight. He was early, but he went in. The little church was like the church at Mystic, his hometown. He sat down and thought about his family. He planned to go home to them in September, home from his travels, and to see them all again. The boy must be older now. He could teach him to fish. He remembered his little daughter, Helen, too. She must be nearly 6 now. His wife, Sharon, had the job of explaining to her that he was away at sea. Later, he walked out of the church with the others, but he knew nobody there, and nobody knew him. He walked up the hill and thought about Scorpion. At the house, he found Mary and Dura Davidson. The church was full, he said, and sat down with them.
Mary says you're going back to Williamstown this afternoon, said Moira. Can't you stay and have another swim?
He shook his head. I have a lot of work on board, he said. We go to sea this week.
Do you work all the time?
Moira said. Oft. Do you do work? He asked.
Of course. I'm a very busy woman. I drink and drink. Can I come and see your submarine next week?
No, he said with a laugh. We're going to sea. I'll show it to you another time. To Williamstown by train. There he went on board Sydney. He had 2 rooms on the ship, and one of them was his office. Lieutenant Hirsch soon appeared with a lot of messages in his hand. One of these surprised the commander a little. It said that a government scientist was coming on board. His name was Mr. J.S. Osborne. Towers looked up at the lieutenant. Say, do you know anything about Mr. Osborne?
He's here now, sir. He arrived this morning. I put him in the officer's quarters. The duty officer will give him his own room tonight.
Well, well, said the captain. What does he look like?
He's very tall and thin, sir. About 30.
The commander said, Ask Mr. Osborne to come in. The scientist soon arrived. Well, Mr. Osborne, said Towers, this is a surprise. I'm glad to know you.
It was all decided quickly, Osborne said. I only heard about it that day before yesterday.
Are you married?
No.
Have you ever been to sea in a submarine before?
No,
said the scientist. There isn't much room, said Towers. He looked at the man's good clothes. You'll need some other clothes. Ask Lieutenant Commander Holmes about that tomorrow morning. You'll get dirty when you go down into Scorpion. What are you gonna do there?
I have orders to watch the radioactivity. I understand you're going on a trip to the north.
Everybody understands that except me. I'll probably be told Monday. Do you expect an increase in radioactivity inside the ship?
I don't think so, but you'll want to know about that, won't you?
Of course. They discussed scientific matters. In the evening, Osborne went down into Scorpion. He examined the radiation detector on the periscope. There was another detector in the ship's engine room. A message arrived for Commander Towers on the next day. It explained about the trip. On Tuesday, Towers sailed away to begin his sea tests. All afternoon, they sailed round a boat which contained some radioactive material. Osborne ran about the submarine and watched his detectors. At 5 o'clock, the tests ended, and they turned away from the boat and the radioactive material. They stayed on the surface and sailed towards the west. They were off Cape Banks. There, they went down to 15 meters, but they sometimes came up to use the periscope and to look round. Then they left the Cape and sailed into open sea. On Thursday, they were north of King Island and turned the submarine towards home. They were back at Williamstown again on Friday. That evening, Dwight telephoned Moira Davidson. "We got back safe and well," he said. "Can I come and see the submarine?" she asked. "I'll be glad to show it to you. Tomorrow's the best day." She was glad. "Shall I come to Williamstown Station?" she asked. "That's the best way. I'll meet you there." "Good. Meet the first train after 11:30. She arrived on the next day in a white dress. She looked nice, but he was a little surprised about the dress in a dirty submarine. Towers introduced her to John Osborne, but she had met him before. "What are you doing here, John?" she asked. "I'm part of the ship's company," he replied. "Are you going to live with them in the submarine? Do they know your terrible habits?" She turned away. "Well, it's not my business," she added. She made a pretty picture in the officers' quarters. She had lunch with the Americans at one end of the table. After that, they gave her something better to wear. A white dress was not the best choice for a submarine. She changed her clothes, and then they took her to Scorpion. She asked some questions about the submarine, and she looked through the periscope, but she could not understand the engines. Then Towers gave her some tea and told her about the trip. "We're going to Cairns, Port Moresby, and Darwin," he said. "Then we'll come back here." "Will you go on land? Won't there be some radiation?" "We'll have to find out about that. Conditions are bad. We'll stay below the surface. John Osborne will help us. He's a scientist, and he understands radiation." "Have you ever been in a radioactive place before?" "Oh, yes. We were in it during the war. We went from Iwo Jima to the Philippines. Of course, we didn't go outside the ship." "Has anybody been in the radioactive place since the war stopped?" she asked. "Yes, a Swordfish. That's our sister ship. She got back to Rio de Janeiro a month ago. I've been waiting for the captain's report. I haven't seen it yet. But the submarine went a long way. She went from Florida to Maine. She went to New York and Halifax and St. John's. Then she sailed up the English Channel and into the River Thames, but she couldn't get far there. She went to look at Brest and Lisbon. But then her men were starting to fall ill, and she went back to Rio. "Did they find anyone alive, Dwight?" "I don't think so." "Think of all those cities," she said. "All those fields and farms with nobody. Nothing alive. I can't imagine it." "I can't either," he said. "I don't want to try." "I never saw them, of course," she said. "I only know those places from films and books. I don't think anybody will make another film of them now." He shook his head. "It wouldn't be possible," he said. "Nobody can go there now. Have another cup of tea.
No thanks.
They went up to the fresh air.
Does everybody down there in the submarine always stay calm? She asked.
Most of us.
Watch John Osborne, she said. I don't believe he's a calm man.
He was surprised. He had not thought of that. Well, thanks, he said. I'll do that. They went to Sydney and looked at some of the aircraft.
They'll never fly again, will they?
She said. I don't think so.
Do any aircraft fly now?
I haven't heard of one in the air for a long time. They've got no fuel. She walked quietly to her room and changed into her white dress again. She felt better then. She hated these ships. She wanted dancing and music. She wanted to get out of these metal walls. She must get out quickly. This was no place for her. He met her in the officers' quarters. You look beautiful, he said.
I don't feel beautiful, she replied. Take me to that hotel and give me a drink. After that, we'll dance.
Anything you say. He left her with John Osborne while he took off his uniform. She went up into the fresh air with Osborne. At first, they lost their way in the great ship, but then they reached the sunlight and the blue sea.
I'm glad to be out of that, she said. Are you having fun? Yes, I think I am. It's going to be rather interesting. Looking at dead people through a periscope? I can think of funnier sorts of fun. The radioactivity may be less now, the scientist said. I don't think we'll discover anything good, but we have to find out. Is that fun? Yes, it is. You won't face things, that's your trouble. You've got to face the facts of life. All right, she agreed angrily. I'll face them next September. That's the date that you scientists have given us. Don't be too sure about September, he said. It may come earlier or later than that. Don't you know? She asked. Commander Towers appeared and walked towards them. I couldn't find you, he said. Be careful, sir, said Osborne. She's very angry. Take me away, Dwight, she said. Towers took her to a hotel, and they had a few drinks. Then they went into the city. The streetcars were the only traffic in the streets. Some people were dancing in a hotel, and an Italian was playing for them. A drunk fell down near them. It isn't as bad as before, she told him. It was worse just after the war. It's Saturday today, of course. It's very quiet on an ordinary night. They had a meal and talked a lot. She told him about her life. She did not work now. People don't want office girls now, she said. There's less business in the city, and a lot of offices have closed. Isn't there work of any kind? He asked. None that I can do. He tried to let her enjoy the evening. He talked about things that she understood. After dinner, they danced, and then he paid the bill. The city was quieter now, but some men were drunk in the streets and could not walk straight. At the station, she thanked him for a nice evening. When do you go north? She asked. I don't know, not yet. A message came in just before we left. I have to report to the Navy Department on Monday. Lieutenant Commander Holmes is coming too.
Perhaps we'll leave on Monday afternoon.
Come and find me when you get back.
I will. Perhaps we could go sailing. He stood and watched her go. She was soon lost in the crowd. She was rather like his wife, Sharon. Or perhaps he was forgetting his wife now. He turned away and went to catch his train to Williamstown. Morning, he went to the Navy Department. Peter Holmes went with him. They waited to see Admiral Sir David Hartman. A short time later, they were invited into his office. The Admiral got up to meet them.
"Good morning," he said. "The Prime Minister wants to see you before you go. We'll go to his office in a minute, but before we do that, I want to give you this. It's the report of the captain of Swordfish about his trip. He went from Rio de Janeiro to the North Atlantic."
The American took the report and looked at it closely.
"He found a lot of radioactivity," the Admiral said. "It was greater in the north than in the south. He went down near Parniba and stayed under the water for the whole trip. He came to the surface again near Cape Sao Roku."
"How long was he below the surface, sir?"
32 days. Well, take it away and look at it. It gives news of conditions in the north. If you want to communicate with him, he's at Montevideo now."
"Are things getting dangerous in Rio, sir?"
"Yes, a bit."
They left the Navy Department and got into an electric car. It took them silently through the empty streets. Soon they were sitting with the Prime Minister, Mr. Donald Ritchie. He said,
"I wanted to see you, Commander Towers, to tell you something about your trip. You are going to Cairns, Port Moresby, and Darwin. You will report on conditions in those places. Look for any signs of life, people or animals, and birds if you can."
"That's going to be difficult, sir," Dwight said.
"Yes, I understand you're taking a scientist with you."
"Yes, sir, Mr. Osborne." The Prime Minister passed a hand across his face.
"Well, I don't expect you to put yourselves in danger. In fact, you must not do that. We want you back here with your ship. We want your men here in good health. Your scientist will guide you. We want all the news that you can get. If the radiation is weak, you should land. You should go into the towns. But I don't think the radiation will allow that."
"I shall have to go below the surface south of Townsville," said the American. The Prime Minister said heavily,
"Yes, there are still some people alive in Townsville. You can only go there if the Navy Department decides that you can."
He lifted his head and looked at the American.
"That may seem hard to you, Commander, but you can't help them, so don't give them hope by showing your ship. We know something about conditions in Townsville. We are still in communication with them."
"I understand that, sir."
"That brings me to the last order," the Prime Minister said. "You cannot take anybody on board your ship during the trip. If you want to do that, you must get the permission of the Navy Department by radio. None of you must communicate with other people. They might be radioactive. Is that quite clear?"
"Quite clear, sir." The Prime Minister rose to his feet.
I hope to see you again, Commander Towers, 2 weeks from now.
Chapter 3. The First Journey. 9 days later, USS Scorpion came to the surface. First, the captain put up his periscope and checked his position. Then, John Osborne checked the radiation with his detectors. The Scorpion rose, a long grey submarine. She was moving towards the south. Some of the officers and men came up from below, and clean air began to blow through the ship. Everyone was glad to be in the fresh air and to see the rising sun. They had all been below the surface for over a week. The submarine stayed on the surface and moved towards the coast of Queensland. The captain reported their position by radio. Between Cairns and Port Moresby in the Coral Sea, they had met only one ship. There seemed to be nobody alive on board. All her boats were in place, but they could not go on board. There was too much radiation. So they photographed her through the periscope and left her.
We can't say much in our report, said Osborne.
That's right, the captain agreed. But we did see that dog. They had in fact learned very little during the trip. They had moved towards Cairns on the surface, but they had stayed inside the submarine. The radiation was high outside. They moved with great care. They even spent one night without moving at all. It might be dangerous to move in the dark. When they sailed in towards the land, the town looked normal. The sun was shining on the beach and on the mountains behind. Through the periscope, they could see streets and shops. They saw beautiful trees and houses and a hospital. Some cars stood in the streets, and 1 or 2 flags were flying. They went up the river, but they saw little. There were a few boats, but no big ships. They could not see far because the top of the periscope was low in the water. It seemed like Sunday on land. A large black dog appeared and noticed the periscope. They had stayed in the river for 2 hours. They called through a loud hailer, but nobody replied. The whole town turned the ship round and went out a little way. They could see the Strand Hotel and some of the shops again. They stayed there for a time, still calling, but they got no answer. They moved out to sea again. The captain did not want to be near the land when night came. They had learned nothing there except some facts about the radioactivity. Cairns looked exactly as it had looked before. The sun shone in the streets, and the trees were bright on the distant hills. It was a nice place, but nobody lived there now. The only thing alive seemed to be a dog. Port Moresby had been the same. From the sea, they could see nothing wrong with the town. Through the periscope, they saw a ship. She had a ladder up the side. 2 more ships lay on the beach. Perhaps a storm had put them there. The captain called through the loud hailer, and they stayed there for some hours. There was no reply. 2 days later, they reached Port Darwin. They lay in the port below the town. They could not see much from there, only the roof of Government House and part of the Darwin Hotel. They moved around and called through the loudhailer. They examined some boats through the periscope, but they could learn nothing.
"People are all in bed," said John Osborne. "If a man's ill, he goes to bed. Animals go into a quiet corner to die too."
"That's enough about that," said the captain.
"It's true,"
the scientist replied. "Right, it's true. Now we won't talk about it anymore." They left Port Darwin, as they had left Cairns and Port Moresby. They went back to the south and down the coast of Queensland, moving below the surface. They were getting tired now. They talked little until they came up to the surface 3 days after they left Darwin. They all felt better after breathing some fresh air. "Our trip is like the experience of swordfish, of course," Dwight said. "She saw nothing in the States or in Europe." Peter took the report of swordfish from the top of a cupboard. He had read it a number of times, and he knew it well. He turned the pages. "It's true," he said. "There's nothing here about conditions on land, and they couldn't either," the captain said. "Nobody will ever know much about radioactive places. And that's true of the whole of the northern part of the world. We can't see them, and it's a good thing," said Peter. "I think that's right," said the captain. "There are some terrible things in the world now. Nobody should want to see them."
"I was thinking about that last night," John Osborne said. "Have you ever thought that nobody will ever see Cairns again? Or Moresby? Or Darwin?"
"Nobody could see more than we've seen," the captain agreed.
"Who could go there except us?" said Osborne. "And we won't go there again."
"That's true. I don't think they'll send us back there again. I never thought of this, but you're right. We're the last living people that will ever see those places." Dwight paused. "And we saw nothing." "There should be an account of all this," Peter said. "Is anybody writing a history of these times?"
"I haven't heard of one," Osborne said. "What's the use of writing a history that no one will ever read?"
"I'd like to read a history of this last war," said the American. "I was in it for a short time, but I don't know a thing about it. Has anybody written anything?"
"Not a history," said Osborne. "We know some facts, of course, but there are a lot of things that we don't know."
"I'd like to read about the things that we do know," the captain said.
"What kind of things, sir?"
"Well, how many bombs were dropped? Nuclear bombs, I mean."
"They think about 4,700, said Osborne, "but perhaps there were more than that."
"How many of these were the big bombs?"
"Most of them, I think. All of the bombs dropped in the Russo-Chinese War were the big kind. Most of them contained cobalt."
"Why did they use cobalt?" Peter asked.
"I don't know," the scientist replied. "Probably to get more radioactivity. I can't tell you more than that."
"I think I can tell you," said the American. "I learned about this kind of war at Yerba Buena, San Francisco. Some commanding officers went there a month before the war, and we were told about these things. The officers there expected a war between Russia and China. They told us what might happen."
"What did they tell you?" asked John Osborne quietly.
The captain considered for a minute. "It was about
Then he said,
ports. Ports with warm water. No ice in the winter. Russia hasn't got a port which doesn't freeze in the winter. There is Odessa, of course, but that's on the Black Sea. If a ship wants to leave Odessa and reach the oceans, she has to go past the Bosphorus and Gibraltar. In times of war, Russian ships can't pass there. Murmansk and Vladivostok can stay open, of course. They can break the ice. They have ships for that. But those ports are a very long way from any other place. I mean, a Russian place which produces anything. They said at Yerba Buena that Russia really wanted Shanghai.
Is that convenient for their Siberian factories?
The scientist asked. Yes, the captain answered. During the Second World War, they moved a lot of their factories to the east, as far as Lake Baikal. They built new towns and everything else. Well, it's a long, long way from those places to Odessa. Shanghai is only about half the distance. He paused. There was another thing that they told us. He went on. China had more people than Russia, a lot more. It had more and more factories. Russia had millions and millions of square kilometers of empty land, so she was afraid of an attack by China. She wanted fewer Chinese near her borders, and she wanted Shanghai. So the result was nuclear war.
But if she used cobalt, said Peter, she couldn't follow and take Shanghai. Think of the radiation there.
That's true, but nobody could live in North China for a number of years. She could drop the bombs in the right places. Then the radioactivity would cover all China to the sea. If there was any more, it would go across the Pacific Ocean. If any of it reached the States, Russia's eyes wouldn't fill with tears. Certainly, she couldn't follow the bombs and take Shanghai for a number of years, but she would get it in the end. Peter turned to the scientist. How long would it be before people could work in Shanghai?
After a cobalt bomb, I couldn't guess. It depends on a lot of things. More than 5 years, I think. Less than 20, but you just can't say.
Dwight agreed. The Russians would get there first. They would arrive before the Chinese or anyone else.
This?
John Osborne asked. Oh, they had a very different idea. They didn't especially want to kill Russians. They wanted to change them. They wanted Russians to grow things and do nothing else. Then they wouldn't want Shanghai or any other port. They aimed to cover Russian factories with radiation, so the Russians couldn't use the machines for 10 years or more. The Chinese planned a small amount of radiation. It would not go far around the world. They didn't try to hit a city. They just wanted to drop a cobalt bomb 16 kilometers to the west of it and let the wind do the rest. He paused. When all the Russian factories were dead, he went on, the Chinese could walk in at any time. They could keep away from radioactive places. Then later, they could enter the towns. The machines would be old and useless, Peter said. Yes, but the war would be easy.
Do you think that actually happened?
John Osborne asked. I don't know, said the American. Perhaps nobody knows. They sat in silence for a few minutes.
Was this after the Russians bombed Washington and London?
Peter said. The Russians never bombed Washington, Dwight said. The aircraft were Russian, but the men were Egyptians. They came from Cairo.
Are you sure that's true? It's true enough. They shot down the one that landed at Puerto Rico. It was on its way home. They only knew that it was Egyptian after the bombing of Leningrad and Odessa and the Russian nuclear centers.
Do you mean that we bombed Russia by mistake?
It was a terrible thought.
That's right, Peter, said Osborne. It's an official secret, but it's true. First was the bomb on Naples. That was done by the Albanians, of course. Then there was the bomb on Tel Aviv. Nobody knows who dropped that one. Then the British and the Americans flew some aircraft over Cairo. Next day, the Egyptians sent out all the aircraft they had. 6 went to Washington and 7 to London. 1 reached Washington and 1 reached London. After that, there weren't many American or British politicians alive.
The aircraft were Russian, Dwight added. I believe they had Russian markings too, cried the Australian.
So we bombed Russia.
That's what happened, said the captain heavily.
And the war spread,
said Osborne.
I can understand it. London and Washington were dead. Somebody had to make decisions, so army officers made them. They had to be quick before more bombs arrived. Politicians in Canberra think now that the officers made the wrong decisions.
But if it was a mistake, why didn't they stop the war? It was extremely difficult, you know, said the captain. All the politicians were dead. How do you stop a war when the politicians are dead?
The bombs were too cheap, said the scientist. They only cost about £50,000 near the end. Every little country could have some. And every little country that had some money started to drop bombs. It thought it could beat anyone else. It could drop the bombs in a surprise attack before the other country was ready. That was the real trouble.
Another problem was the aircraft, the captain said. The Russians had been giving the Egyptians aircraft for years. The British had done the same, and they had been giving them to Israel and to Jordan. They even gave them big aircraft, which could fly a long way. That was the big mistake.
Well, after that, said Peter, there was a war between Russia and the West. Why was China in it?
I don't think anybody knows exactly, said the captain. Perhaps China saw that Russia was busy, so China attacked her with nuclear bombs. He paused. But it's all guessing, he went on. There was no news. Most of the radio stations were soon dead and silent. The higher officers were dead, so younger officers had to do the thinking.
John Osborne smiled sadly. Chan Sai-Lin, he said.
Who was he? Peter asked.
I don't think anybody really knows. He was an officer in the Chinese Air Force. Near the end, he seems to have been in command. The Prime Minister was communicating with him and trying to stop it all. And there was another man in Russia. Nobody important. But I don't think the Prime Minister ever reached the Russians. The war only stopped when all the bombs had gone and all the aircraft were useless.
What would I do in those conditions? Said the American. I just don't know. I couldn't stop fighting if I had some bombs. If Russia was hitting the States, could I just stop? They didn't know either, said the scientist. Too bad, but it's not the Russians' fault. The big countries didn't start this thing. The small countries are responsible for the death of the world.
Peter Holmes smiled sadly. It's hard on the rest of us.
You've got 6 months more, said John Osborne. Be glad about that. You've always known that you're going to die. Now you know the date, that's all. Do everything that you want to do before the end.
That's the trouble, said Peter. I can't think of anything better than this.
A prisoner in Scorpion?
I can't really believe I'm gonna die soon, can you?
But you've seen things.
I haven't seen any damage.
You can't imagine anything, said the scientist. All Army and Navy people are the same. You think it can't happen to me.
He paused.
But it can, and it certainly will.
I can't imagine the end of the world. It's too difficult.
It's not the end of the world, John Osborne said. It's only the end of us. The world will go on just the same, but we shan't be in it. Perhaps it'll be all right without us.
That's probably right, said Towers. Cairns seemed to be all right. There wasn't much wrong with it, or with Port Moresby either. He paused and thought about the trees on the coast. He had seen them through the periscope. We're not good enough for this beautiful world, he said. They went up into the fresh air and the sunlight. In the morning, they reached the Heads near Sydney Harbour. Then they sailed on to the south and reached the aircraft carrier at Williamstown. The Admiral was there to meet them. Dwight Towers went to meet him. "Well, Commander," said the Admiral, "what kind of trip did you have?" "We had no problems, sir. We followed our orders, but the results are not very interesting." "You didn't learn very much." "We got plenty of facts about the radiation, sir. We couldn't go up to the surface in the north." "Did you have any sickness?" "No radiation went below." Dwight showed the Admiral some notes for his report. "I'll send it to you when it's ready, sir," he said. "But in fact, we found out very little." "No signs of life in any of those places?" "Nothing at all. Of course, you can't see much from a low periscope. We saw very little of Cairns and Port Moresby, and we couldn't see Darwin at all. We could only see the front of it. We didn't see anything wrong there." The Admiral turned over the pages of the notes. "You stayed some time at each place?" "About 5 hours. We were calling all the time through the loudhailer." "And you got no answer?" "None, sir. We thought we heard something at first, but it was only the wind." "Birds?" "None at all. We saw a dog at Cairns." The Admiral stayed 20 minutes. Then he said, "Well, get this report ready as soon as you can. Send a copy direct to me. It's rather a pity, but you did all that anybody could have done." The American said, "I was reading that report from Swordfish, sir. There isn't much news about things on land. They didn't see more than we did. But I would like to suggest something, sir." "What's that, Commander?" "The radiation isn't very strong in most of those places, sir. The scientist tells me that a man could work in them. He can wear special clothes to keep the radiation out, and he'll be safe.
We can put him on land in any of those places." "Won't his clothes be radioactive when he comes back?" said the Admiral. "How can we make them safe?" "That's a problem, but perhaps we can solve it. I'll suggest it to the Prime Minister. Of course, he may not want anybody to go on land, but it's an idea." He turned towards the ladder. "You can have 10 days, he said. "After that, I'm not sure. I'll send you a message this afternoon." Peter Holmes rang Mary after lunch. "We're safely back again," he said. "I'll come home sometime tonight, dear. I have to send off a report first. I'll take it to the Navy Department on my way. Don't meet me. I'll walk up from the station." "I'm glad to hear from you again," she said. "Have you had much to eat recently?" "No, I'll cook some eggs when I get home. There's another thing. One of the men was ill on board. Nothing serious, but anyone who comes near me may catch it. I must keep away from Jennifer." And Mary telephoned Moira. "Did they find anybody alive?" Moira asked. "I don't know. Peter didn't say. Do you want to see Commander Towers again?" "Oh, he isn't important to me. He's a married man." "He can't be married now," said Mary. Later in the day, Peter arrived home. Mary talked to him about Towers and told him that Moira was still thinking of him. Peter had to go to the Navy Department the next day. On his way there, he met John Osborne, who suggested lunch. "Come along to my club," Osborne said. They met Sir Douglas Froude at the club. He was Osborne's great-uncle and had commanded the army in the old days. They sat down with him and they all had drinks. Sir Douglas was trying to drink a lot before he died. "It's useless to leave all that good alcohol," he said. "We'll soon be dead. So I take a bottle home 3 days a week. We're all drinking hard since we have to finish it quickly." Moira telephoned Peter Holmes just as he was leaving the club. "Will you ask Commander Towers to your place?" she said. Peter was not sure about it. "He may give Jennifer the illness that one of the men on board caught," he said. "And what would Mary say then?" "I'll tell her Jennifer caught it from you. Will you ask him?" "All right, but he won't come." "He will." He came. Moira met him at Falmouth Station, as before, and they drove together to a hotel. "Did you find out a lot?" she asked. "Nothing at all," said Dwight. "Nothing about birds, nothing about fish, and not much about anything else." "Did you catch any fish?" "You can't catch fish when you're in a submarine," he said. "There's nobody alive up there, is there?" she said. He shook his head. "I don't think so," he said. "I can't be sure because we didn't go on land. You could send a man if he had the right clothes. He could wear protective clothes and be safe from the radiation. But there's a problem when he comes back to the ship. His protective clothes may be radioactive themselves." "Will you go again?" she asked. "Yes, I will. We've had no orders, but I think they'll send us to the States." She was surprised. "Can you go there?" she said. "Yes," he answered. "It's a long way. If we go, we'll have to spend a long time underwater. That's hard on the men,
But it's possible. Swordfish did it, and we could do it too. He told her about the journey of the swordfish. But you can't see much through a periscope, he said. It's too low in the water. The captain of Swordfish didn't really learn much. You can see bomb damage in a port, but you can't see radiation. We called through the loud hailer, but nobody appeared, so we're fairly sure
that they were all
Mackay's dead now, she said.
Do you think it's true?
I think it is, he replied. The dust's coming south all the time. The scientists said it would do that.
How long will it be before it's here?
September, perhaps. Perhaps a bit before that. She stood up.
I want to go somewhere,
she said.
I must do something. Shall we dance?
We could sail a boat, he said. They found a boat and joined in one of the races. Then they had a swim. While they were doing this, Peter and Mary prepared a meal. After the meal, Moira said,
Dwight, tell me about the journey of Swordfish. Did you say she went to the United States?
That's right. She went to a lot of places near the sea. But they were all ports, Delaware Bay, Hudson River, and places like that. They also went to look at New York. That was dangerous.
Why?
Mines. Our own mines. Every big port and every river mouth was protected by mines. It was the same on the West Coast, too. They took a chance and went in. But they found out nothing new. The shape of the land was changed a bit. The whole place was radioactive, and there was nobody alive.
Did they go anywhere else?
Yes, to New London in Connecticut. It was their home port. Most of them had lived there or near there, like me.
Did you live there?
She asked. Yes, I did.
Was it like all the other places?
It seems so, he replied sadly. They didn't say much in the report, but the radioactivity was bad. Most of the offices and men must have been near their homes. They couldn't do anything, of course. They just stayed there for a time and then went away.
I'm surprised they went in there, she said.
They went because they knew about those mines. They were able to stay away from them. I've got a home about 24 kilometers away. It's in a little place called West Mystic. She understood his thoughts. His wife and children were real to him still. He thought about them as they used to be. He did not think of them as dead.
What's young Dwight going to be when he grows up?
She asked. She knew that it was a dangerous question. Oh, he said, he'll go into the Navy like me. It's a good life for a boy. I don't know a better life. I think he wants to do that too.
Does he like the sea?
Yes, he does. We live right near the beach. He's on or in the water most of the summer. I'll get him a boat when I go home next September. Suddenly, he turned to her. You think I'm weak in the head, don't you? But I can't think in any other way. She stood up.
I don't think you're weak in the head, she said.
They walked in silence to the beach. Chapter 4. Dreams and Reality. At breakfast next morning, Mary said, Do you want to go to church, Commander? I'd like to go if it's convenient. Of course it is, she said. Just go when you like. We can have tea at the club this afternoon. He shook his head. Perhaps I'll have a swim,
but I must get back to the ship after supper."
He went out into the garden, and Moira found him there later.